Okay.
All right, this meeting is being live streamed. So I'm going to call us to order at 8:02 p.m. Eastern Time. And we are going to do public comment. And then we'll do roll call if that's okay with you, Madam Secretary. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So here's what I want everybody to do. Go down here to where reactions are. Raise your hand. We're gonna give 2 minutes for public comment. If you are a candidate, we may call on you later. Please be watching the clock on your end. So get that, get your cell phone out, put a little stopwatch on because I hate cutting people off. It just feels so icky. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with Mr. Samuel Bowler.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Samuel Bowler. I'm from Alabama. You should have received an email from me and many other LPA members asking for your support of the LPA polling proposal. As I mentioned in the email, I understand that there are other pressing issues with the other state affiliates trying to disaffiliate and dissolve. From my understanding, it's mainly due to intra-party conflict between Mises Caucus and anti-Mises Caucus members. I bring that up to make a point. Alabama has over 60 candidates this year. Some are Mises, some are anti-Mises, many are neither. But what they all are is passionate about this election and working together towards that common goal. This isn't just any election for us. This election is historic. We raised $250,000 for a petition signing campaign to put the Libertarian Party back on the Alabama ballot for the first time in 20 years. We are running 4 times as many statewide candidates as the Democratic Party, and we have an opportunity to not just perform well, but win some offices. Finally, we also have the opportunity to retain ballot access for 2024. So during that election, we can put the full force of our time, energy, and money towards campaigning instead of collecting signatures for months on end yet again. This election has brought together the members of the LPA of different caucuses and different views. We all have the same desire, and our candidates and the members who support them are firing on all chambers to make it happen. Funding this proposal does more than give us the ability to conduct a poll. It finances our affiliates' ability to make history. We are all Alabama, and we are all together. Thank you for your time and support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bowler. Up next, we have Ms. Natalie Bruno. Oh, make sure you're unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, apparently I have to unmute on my phone and on the computer at the same time. Apologies for that. So thank you guys again for having me on and having the opportunity to possibly have some funding sent towards my campaign. I did have an opportunity to speak last time, so I only wanted to make a couple of small notes of things I forgot to mention on the last meeting. The first thing I wanted to bring up is the fact that even though we do currently have ballot access in our state, having 2.5% in a statewide election helps us to maintain that for an additional 4 years. As Stephen had already mentioned, this is a fantastic thing to be able to do because it has allowed our candidates to be able to focus for these last several years just on campaigning as opposed to having to work on ballot access, which has allowed us to continue to grow and have great numbers in previous elections and in this election as well. So I want to make sure that we continue to keep that standard of keeping our ballot access so we have the ability to not have to worry about that again in the upcoming election. The other thing that I forgot to bring up as well is because of the fact that I'm in marketing and advertising, I have been doing tons of data collection for us to be able to utilize in other campaigns. I have made sure to utilize UTM codes and Google Analytics across all of the types of advertising I've been doing, and I will continue to do so with any funding that I receive as well that I am happy to share as case studies whenever it comes to other candidates in other states. So it's not only an investment in my campaign, but an investment in targeted messaging and how they relate to voters that we will be able to use, in other states as well. And then lastly, I wanted to make note that I also have sent an email to the committee as well as to the executive committee that requested copies of my campaign plan, along with some other data points as well that shows how my campaign is doing in the state of Oklahoma, as well as the quantity of media and everything that I've already received. So again, I want to thank you guys so much for this consideration, and I will be on to hear the voting and answer any questions later.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ms. Bruno. Up next, we have Mr. Gavin Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Gavin Goodman. I am the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Alabama. I am a candidate for U.S. Congress for the Alabama 7th, and I'm the political director for our 60-plus candidates in Alabama, along with specializing as the chairman for the committee to elect Jimmy Blake for governor. I only mean to say that in that we are all wearing multiple hats in Alabama. The team is organizing in a way that we never have. There is a lot of information that I can give, and I will make myself available to any member of the LNC to answer questions about what's going on. But what I can tell you is that the Democratic and Republican Party was not at all expecting the Libertarians to achieve ballot access and then to show such force with our 60-plus candidates. We have taken them by surprise and found that 50 of our candidates are running in only two-way races, many of which are not running against an incumbent. So we have a very strong position right now to win seats. I do want to speak for just a moment on the ballot access retention number, which is 20%. There was some questions as to how we are going to reach that and what numbers. Our best data right now shows that achieving 20% in one of our two top races, governor or lieutenant governor, where we have the most chance, would cost about $50,000. Within the governor's race, we've put in about $15,000 through private donations already. We are working with several lists to achieve the rest of that. This polling helps us have targeted information that we can provide to donors on what we are going to do in what precincts. We want to be as efficient as possible, and we want to hit that 20% and then see many of our down ballot candidates elected as well. There is much we can do, and I will yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goodman. Up next, we have Mr. Austin Lynch.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to take a moment. I know that I spoke with you all during the last meeting, and I just want to appreciate your time and consideration. I just want to emphasize that I am running for state senate in West Virginia, District 12. It is a head-to-head race, as I mentioned before. At this point, I've raised over $12,000 towards this race, and truthfully, it has been a very positive experience. My opponent is not incredibly popular by any stretch among Democrats or even his own party as a Republican. And so this is a winnable race. I just want to emphasize that. As far as our plan and how we're going to win this race, I've submitted a letter to the LNC that I think you've received at this point, as well as my party chairs submitted a letter. I would be happy to speak about any of those things offline with anyone, just because obviously with this being live streamed, I don't want to share some of those because we have some pretty exciting things happening. But I definitely know that this race is winnable, and we can elect our first Libertarian to the West Virginia legislature. And I think this would be a huge, huge moment for the LPWV as well as for the LNC nationally. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Up next, we have Tyler. How do I say your last name? Capel?
Yes, it's Capel.
Great. Go right ahead.
Yeah. Y'all, thank you for listening to me today. I got about 34% against the Republican incumbent for state legislature in Nebraska. I won 2 of my counties that I'm running in out of 7. I think this is a very winnable race here in southwestern Nebraska. A lot of people just want to be left alone, I'm hitting the pavement hard, knocking a lot of doors and doing fundraisers and other events. So that's my spiel. Thank you.
Could you repeat those percentages again one more time? I'm sorry, I was taking notes and I.
Yes, 34% of the vote in the primary. And I won 2 of the counties out of 7.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, who have we got next? I believe we have Ms. Harlos next.
Yes. I had just a quick comment. Gavin, your beard is awesome. That's all.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's move to our agenda. There are 2 motions on the table. And it looks like we have a few discussion items as well. Do we have anyone from the candidate support committee on this call?
And Madam Chair, Darby Burns had just come in the middle, might not have realized we had public comment. I don't know if he wanted to make a public comment.
Mr. Burns? You up anywhere?
This is Brian Elliott. I do know from being in the same state with Darby that he did put in a formal request for funding. So if he's showing up as being here, he would probably like to support his motion.
So let's do this. Let's be mindful that we're going to consider discussing every candidate. So no one's going to get kicked off. If someone had already put in a request, we're going to at least chat about it. We've got a couple of motions that are actually pending. So if there's candidate support that's not a noticed motion, that's something that could potentially be handled in an email ballot by the executive committee. So just putting that out there, if it's not within the purview of ballot access, that would be an LNC motion. But do we have anyone from the candidate support committee on? Because I would kind of like to hear from them if they're on. I know, let's see. If you're on and you're on the CSC, please raise your hand. Do we have any LNC members? There's Ms. Crosby. Going once, going twice. Mr. Burns is not able to chat right now. He's just listening.
Madam Chair, the minutes from the candidate support committee, I don't know if they were sent to the entire executive committee. I know I got a copy.
I also got a copy. So why don't we pull those up?
Okay, I didn't know if they were confidential. That's why I didn't.
I looked over them and I didn't see anything confidential in them.
Okay, 1 second.
Okay.
Those should be on the screen.
Okay.
And the part that dealt with those motions was right here.
Trying to make it a little bigger. It's like tiny.
Oh, it's as big. It's big on my screen.
It's probably, let's see, full screen. There we go. Okay, a little bit easier for me to read now. Okay, so new business, motion made to create a form, motion
5B.
5B, formal request. Okay, motion made to assist Natalie Bruno with non-financial based support. Examples would be social media, promoting fundraising posts / email, and volunteers for phone text banking as resources allow. Motion made by Dustin Blankenship, seconded by TJ Kosin, passed with unanimous consent. So that's the first one. Motion made to recommend to XCOM, that's us, to assist Austin Lynch with up to $2,800 to help with mailers and campaign support. Motion made by TJ Kosin, seconded by Dustin Blankenship, passed with unanimous consent. Motion made to recommend to XCOM to assist Darby Burns with up to $3,000 to help with mailers and campaign support. Motion made by TJ Kosin, seconded by Joshua Toms, passed with unanimous consent. So now let's take a look, if we can, at the instructions that we gave to the CSC. We
One
pulled
moment.
that up. Yep.
we referred these two motions for recommendations. And
Okay.
I would have a question for the candidate support committee that they don't seem to have addressed the monetary portion of Ms. Bruno's request. They did address the non-monetary, and I'd like to know if that was an oversight on their part or if they intended only to recommend the non-monetary portion.
So I took it as a recommendation that they were only recommending the non-monetary portion. That was how I understood it. I don't believe I had an explicit conversation with them about that, though. All right, so I know Dustin Blankenship is not feeling well, and that's why he's not on this call. Can someone try to get a hold of TJ Kosin or anyone else on the CSC? I don't want to stop what I'm doing to do it because I think that would be too disruptive. But if anybody who's not on the XCOM can try to get a hold of them, that would be great. Because I do actually think their input is important. Okay, so is your hand up, Ms. Harlos?
It is when you're ready to hear businesses.
Okay. Well, I think that probably that time is now.
Okay. I'm actually, I know these were presented as two motions. I'd like to divide them. I don't think it's fair to group all three of them together. So the first motion had to deal with financial support for Natalie Bruno. I want to make a motion to see if it's seconded, and then I'll speak to it. I actually do want to move to allocate $4,000 toward Natalie Bruno's race. I'll speak to it if there's a second.
Second.
Okay. I originally was going to vote no on all these motions. I think I told everybody that it had nothing to do with the candidates, but our role as LNC. What changed my mind is the $10,000 Bitcoin fundraiser, that I think we have an obligation to our membership to, I think they believed we were going to spend that directly on candidate support. These are three worthy candidates who have all put in requests. I am not likely to vote for any further in the future without some kind of dedicated fundraising. But I think if we keep waiting, no candidate's going to be able to use this money effectively. They're here. They're good candidates. And I don't understand the candidate support committee's reasoning. I'd love to hear it because I'm going to vote the same way on all three. I'm not going to vote yes on two and no on one. I don't see any logic on that. So I intend upon supporting all three motions, but I'm moving the one for Ms. Bruno first.
Okay. If anybody else on the executive committee wants to speak on it, that's fine. And I will take that if you raise your hand. I also see that TJ Kosin joined the call, and if he's available to chat, I would like to do a little bit of Q&A with him on it, if that's in order. Oh, Mr. Nikela, go right ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We run into the same issue that we had last week, and that is that we had candidates step forward that are fantastic candidates. Tonight, we have fantastic candidates. As a candidate this term, I understand just what it takes. It takes your whole life. It takes asking for money. It takes a million different things, and it's a big sacrifice. And I commend anybody who's willing to do it. Just my whole heart goes out to them. But we did defer the candidates last week to the candidate support committee to go through these recommendations, to give us their information. So as long as it goes to the candidate support committee, they give it back, I'll support it. If not, then I have a very hard time supporting any candidate because that's the proper channel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who we got next? TJ, are you able to speak?
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm driving home.
We can hear you just fine.
I guess the question was why we recommended money for 2 and not the first Miss Bruno.
Yes.
So we sat down and discussed the winnability of each of the races, and in terms of weren't sure exactly what our budget is for candidate support. So with other races coming forward, we didn't want to deplete funds that isn't likely to result. It's not affecting ballot access, and it's not going to result in a win for the party, is the basic consensus that came to the money aspect of Ms. Bruno's.
Okay. Do any of our executive committee members have, oh, I see a hand up. Ms. Karen Ann Harlos, you go right ahead.
Hi, thank you. I just want to just do a tiny bit of pushback against Mr. Nicola, but not a strong pushback. The ultimate authority was vested in the executive committee. We were to consider the recommendations of the candidate support committee. And now that I understand the reasoning was they weren't sure of the budget, I don't know if their reasoning would have changed if they knew that we raised $10,000 from the Bitcoin fundraiser that we promised the party members, in my view, would go directly to candidate support. And I don't think they knew that. And I think it might have affected their decision. I would rather, if an executive committee member is uncomfortable, that they amend my motion, maybe for a smaller amount, rather than nothing. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. But I do think Natalie is running a good campaign, and I don't think anyone is trying to suggest she isn't at all. And I hope she doesn't take it personally if this gets voted down. But, amendment is also, another to make it more in line with the other two, maybe amended to 3,000. I don't know. I'm throwing that out there. I'm not making that amendment, but I'm throwing it out there. But I don't think the candidate support committee maybe fully apprehended why I moved to commit this when I at first was a solid no. I moved to commit it just to make sure there wasn't any kind of poison pills we didn't see. And I don't see that they found anything like that.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Todd Hagopian.
Thank you. Very quickly, I just want to make clear I love Natalie to death. She comes from my home state. So I just wanted to talk briefly on why I'm voting no on the financial component. It'll be the same reason I vote no on any financial component for any race that I don't see as winnable. So I believe there are enough two-person races out there that's what we should be focusing on for the candidate support. And so that's where I will be voting yes for the support, but not for the financial support. Natalie's great. She's going to do awesome. She is doing awesome. But that's where I'm at. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else on the executive committee?
Angela, if I could also just say that, these are just recommendations. We're not telling the executive board what to do.
Gotcha.
We were told to make recommendations. Also, what did play, and we want to be clear, we do think Natalie's running a great race. It's just a hard race to win. That's why we really recommended pushing her hard on social media with fund drives and stuff, so she can get some of those funds in and get the notoriety from the party itself. The West Virginia race is the one that, as a, I don't have my notes in front of me, so I forget the candidate's name. That's the race that we were very passionate about. When I heard how close he is in the polls and the fact that he could be the first Libertarian ever elected in the state of West Virginia, I immediately went to the max he was allowed to get under my motion in that meeting. I'm not sure he actually needs the max. That's why we left it up to was our recommendation, so the board can decide what to do with numbers. But again, he has a good chance of actually winning.
Okay.
Very high chance.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to Mr. Elliott and then Mr. Nicola.
Just a point of clarification for my purposes. How many of these requests, I'm having trouble with the OneNote, I'm on my phone. How many of these requests are two-way races? All of them, except for the one just noted?
That's a very good question. How many candidates are in Ms. Bruno's race? Todd or Natalie Bruno can answer.
4 candidates are in that race.
Okay, 4.
Yes,
Okay.
it's a 4-way race.
Okay, thank you. And then for Austin Lynch, it's a 2-way race. For Darby Burns, how many people are in that race?
Yeah, I know that's a two-way race
That's a
also.
2-way race. Okay.
And something we're in Nevada, we're pretty excited about the opportunity he has as well.
Okay. How about our other one? Does anybody know? Is that all? That's all. That's actually, I think that's all of them, right? That's everything. Okay, so we've got 2, 2, and 4.
Thank you.
Yep. And let's go to Mr. Nikhil.
This is a question for TJ. TJ, are the candidates from last week, are they in this motion? Are they in this agenda, I should say, in your recommendations?
That would be, I think it's Austin. I can't remember his last name. I'm driving, so I don't know if I have it in front of me. It's Natalie Bruno, the West Virginia race and the Nevada race. And the Nevada race, I would also like to add that they have a full-blown marketing strategy for that candidate. Like he presented a full-blown marketing plan to us as candidate support.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Nikhil, do you have any more questions? Because I was going to ask a couple. Go ahead, though. Go ahead.
I was gonna make an amendment to change the financial amount for Ms. Bruno from 4,000 to 2,000.
Okay. Does that have a second?
I will second it, and because I think that's how it will have a better chance of passing.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to change.
Point of clarification.
Okay.
The total referencing Ms. Harlos's $10,000 Bitcoin fundraiser, the total for all these races that we're talking about here is under 10,000, is it not? Again, I apologize, I can't see everything.
With the amended motion, it is definitely under $10,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to amend Ms. Harlow's motion from $4,000 to $2,000 to provide candidate support to Natalie Bruno's gubernatorial race in Oklahoma. Do we have any further discussion on the amendment by executive committee members? And if people want to ask questions of Mr. Cozen, that's also fine. Just let me know. Going once, going twice. Okay, Madam Secretary, I think we're going to go to a vote. This is an amendment, but it's financial. So I'll do it if there's no objections, as long as you're okay with that. Okay, no objections. Going once, going twice. Okay, the motion, the amendment to the motion passes. So now the amended motion is the main motion. Do we have any discussion on the main motion, which is to allocate $2,000 to Ms. Natalie Bruno's gubernatorial race in Oklahoma? Executive committee members. Going once, going twice. Okay, Ms. Harlos, at your convenience, we will go to a voice vote.
Mr. Bowen,
Unfortunately, I hate doing it, but I have to vote no.
Mr. Elliott,
Yes.
Mr. Hagopian,
No.
I will vote yes. Mr. Nikhila,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Madam Chair, it is 4-2. You are absolutely permitted to vote to cause or break a tie. It's at a tie right now. You would be a tiebreaker.
It's at a tie.
It's 4-2. So it's not a majority, it's a tie. Oh, excuse me, duh. Wait, what am I? Am I like smoking crack? I'm smoking crack.
We
It's
are,
definitely, yeah, never mind.
we are
I'm
the
smoking
Libertarian
crack.
Party. We don't endorse smoking crack, but we don't
Neither
judge you
do
too
I,
harshly.
if you can't tell that 4-2 is not a tie. Oh, I had a long day. My
we have-
apologies.
That's okay, Madam Secretary. Do we have a majority on this vote?
Yes, we do. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Does that mean the motion passes?
Well, that would be for you to declare, but it looks
I'm
that
going to
way.
declare the motion passes. We haven't gone into that type of math yet. I know it's trending, but we're not doing that yet. Okay, so the motion passes. Ms. Bruno, we will be in touch this week ASAP about getting you $2,000. Thank you very much for submitting documentation and coordinating with the CSC. Thank you for your time and best of luck on your campaign. Also, make sure to send me a follow-up message this week so that we can try to get you non-monetary support. I don't think that's necessarily something we have to vote on. I think that can be as simple as me putting together some emails and checking with our operations department to see what other resources we have available for your use. Thank you, guys. Okay, so we've got a couple of other motions that have been noticed. Let's take a look. Who's next? It looks like we've got Darby Burns and Austin Lynch. I think maybe we want to discuss Austin Lynch's race next. Oh, Ms. Harlos, actually, I'll let you take the lead on that. See, your hand is up.
I actually I was just going to do it in order, and I was going to make the motion to allocate $3,000 towards Darby Burns race in Nevada. And if it wasn't made clear, I think it was pretty clear in our discussion with the Ms. Bruno's race, and it will be if I end up making these motions, that this is coming from whatever budget line that Bitcoin fundraiser monies went to. That's what budget line I intend for it to be taken from.
Got it. Okay, so it's been moved to allocate $3,000 towards Darby Burns race.
Second.
And it's been seconded. All right, any discussion? Going once, going twice. Does anyone have any questions for Darby Burns or anyone from Nevada who would speak on his behalf? Does anyone have any questions for Mr. TJ Kosin? 1, 2, 3. I know we've heard a little bit. Okay. Okay, well, if there's no discussion, I think we're going to need to go to a vote. So, Madam Secretary, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Bowen?
No.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Hagopian?
Yes.
I will vote yes. Mr. Nikela?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'm not going to do the mistake of last time. It's 5-1.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Burns and other people from Nevada for showing up for the call, chatting with the CSC and making this happen. Okay, so we've got another motion and I see a hand raised. Madam Secretary.
Okay, I would move to allocate $2,800 towards Austin Lynch's campaign in West Virginia.
Okay, it's been moved. That motion is going to need.
Second.
And it's been seconded. Okay, any discussion regarding the motion for Mr. Austin Lynch's campaign support? Going once, going twice. Okay, if there's not going to be any discussion, Madam Secretary, whenever you're ready, we will go to a vote.
Mr. Bowen,
No.
Mr. Elliott,
Yes.
Mr. Hagopian,
Yes.
I will vote yes. Mr. Nikala,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Madam Chair, it's 5-1.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Lynch, for joining us on a call, chatting with the CSC, and for running a really great campaign. Okay, so I believe that takes care of our noticed motions. We have a couple of discussion items that will likely result in an email motion for the executive committee. I believe though, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's all the things that we're going to be voting on tonight.
Yes.
Okay, just letting everybody know. Okay, so we've got Alabama polling on for discussion, and I would like to hear from Mr. Gavin Goodman for a few minutes to get a little bit more information on this. It is related to ballot access, just so everyone knows. So Gavin, if you are able to, can you fill us in on some important information?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. So the funding would flow through one of our top two statewide races, either the gubernatorial, Dr. Jimmy Blake, or Lieutenant Gubernatorial Ruth Page Nelson. The money's going to go to the same thing. It's a polling company here in Alabama. Point blank polling. It is a company that was suggested to us by a supporter of Dr. Jimmy Blake, who's running for governor. This polling data was developed, or this polling poll was developed by Dave Schrader and Jonathan McGee, who is the LPA vice chair. The idea is that it gives us the messaging effectiveness. What we're looking at right now is in these statewide races, achieving the 20%, which would get us ballot access and have our presidential candidate listed as a Libertarian. As I understand it from the Secretary of State, it will also retain ballot access through 26, where we'll be able to run a full slate of candidates, something that neither the Democratic Party nor the Republican Party does. The data would be made available both to national and the data analytics team through Dave Schrader, as well as to the national party. When we're talking about the 2024 run, this data would be very effective. We have been working on messaging and trying to discover the most effective regions for each of these messaging is going to help us achieve that 20%. I would be glad to answer any specific questions, but there is a lot of disparate information.
Okay, so I have a few questions. Which candidates are going to potentially help you retain the 20% or hit the 20% mark to maintain ballot access?
Sure. We have 10 candidates that would qualify.
Okay.
The win number is 20% of those that vote in the gubernatorial election. Sometimes there is undervoting in down ballot, but if let's say our commissioner for agriculture and industry were to receive that win number of 20% of however many vote in the gubernatorial race, we would retain ballot access. Okay. So of our 10 candidates that are running, 5 are running active campaigns, and of those 5, 4 are running in only two-way races.
Okay. And do any of the 10 have endorsements outside of the party?
Yes. We have each of them has been endorsed by Let Bama Vote, which is a initiative and referendum organization that's been around for over 10 years, along with the Alabama Cannabis Coalition. Okay. 26 of our candidates have been endorsed by the AFL-CIO, though none of the statewide candidates listed are endorsed by that. Those
What
are all
is-
state.
What is that? The AFL-CIO?
It is a national trade union,
Okay.
tradesman union.
Brian Elliott here. It's the largest private sector union umbrella in the country. It's been around for generations.
Okay.
We did not seek that endorsement. What's interesting about it is the way that it works state to state is the delegates at their convention vote. So either they were specifically endorsing these candidates to hurt the other side, though they did endorse candidates that are running against only Democrats or only Republicans. But our only assumption is that there are libertarian leaning members of the AFL-CIO, and we're starting to see more attention from that organization.
Do you know if any non-libertarian candidates have been doing polling? Have you been able to look at any of their polls if you're aware of them?
We do know that the governor's race has done some polling. That data is not available to us, but we were made aware that there were 2 questions concerning libertarians on that poll, but we don't know what the results were.
Okay. Does anyone else on the executive committee have any questions? I feel like that covers most of it. Oh, Mr. Hagopian? Yep, go right ahead.
I have asked a few questions along the way on this. I got some new information as you were talking right there. So let me ask you some questions on that. My main concern here was that nobody was likely to get 20% if they were 3-way races. What I think I heard you say is that there are 4 2-way races that could be ballot access qualifiers. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Could you walk through those 4 and let us know how likely what those races look like?
Sure. Starting from top of the ticket, we have for Lieutenant Governor Ruth Page Nelson, who's running against a pretty disliked incumbent, Will Ainsworth. He is the current, he is the Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor and the current incumbent. I know from his race that he's raised about $80,000 right now, and spend it mostly on marketing. Next would be our candidate for Public Service Commission, Laura Lane, who's running against Chris Beaker, same situation, the incumbent and the Republican candidate. Then we have Commissioner of Agriculture and Industry, Jason Clark. He's running against Rick Pate. Interesting about that race is that it is tied directly to obviously agriculture, so cannabis legalization and licensing, as well as directly tied to gas tax. And then last would be Leela Sheen, who's running for state auditor against Andrew Sorrell. Same situation.
Are they all GOP incumbents?
They're all GOP incumbents.
Can I ask what, just loosely or an estimate, what is the voter demographic breakdown in each of the states? Like, is it like a 90%? Is it an 80% GOP area?
Alabama, depending on where you're talking about, but as a state, usually goes 3/4 Republican, 1/4 Democrat.
Okay. So we have some, go ahead.
Could I just follow up with my last question too? So that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to know. I think the lieutenant governor is probably the most likely opportunity because the most people will vote in it. And as you correctly mentioned, that 20% of the governor vote makes this even harder because you may need 22% or 23% to qualify in that specific race. I guess where I'm going here is the money that you're asking for. It will help everybody. But the answers to the questions I asked earlier this week were essentially you guys have trouble. You have trouble fundraising. So if you find out something then what are we going to do next? Is it going to be a $10,000 request next? So I guess my question for you guys to think about is if you would rather have X amount of dollars go towards the most likely race or races, to help you get to that 20%. Could $3,000 at the end of a race help you more than a $6,000 poll followed up by no ability to fundraise after that? So that's just my closing thoughts on that. Thanks.
Real quick on that. So right now, between our the data that we put together to achieve 20% in either or in the lieutenant governor race, we are expecting a total amount of about $50,000 to hit that. That's what we expect. The reason that I'm suggesting that the money go to the gubernatorial candidate is just that his apparatus right now is the most put together, and there is no limit for donations to any statewide candidate in Alabama. So it doesn't matter which statewide candidate the money goes to, it will be used for the same purpose, which is this polling data, which will then be available to everyone.
Okay, so I'm going to make a comment and then we're going to go to Mr. Smith. I would like everyone on the executive committee to know that a PAC donated $2,000 to, or has allocated $2,000. I don't actually know if you've received it yet, Mr. Goodman.
We have received.
Okay, so they have received $2,000 towards their polling goal from Political Action Committee. So we could also just do $4,000 and help them meet that $6,000 mark. Let's go to Mr. Smith.
That almost clears up my question. I was just wondering if there were any other organizations that had given to this cause, any other political action committees or institutes or anything like that.
There was a $2,000 donation made to the committee to elect Jimmy Blake from a PAC today, as well as the Mises Caucus of Alabama has pledged $2,500. I would still ask the executive committee to consider funding the entirety of this because, as our treasurer asked, what will we do with that information? I would like the additional money that's come in to immediately be put into the field to put advertising out in those winnable districts.
I guess just to clarify, which political action committee was it that gave to it?
It was the Mises Caucus Political Action Committee.
It was the National Mises Caucus?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Ms. Harlos?
Oh, okay. I can tell you that I've been getting a lot of feedback from members urging support on this, which I appreciate hearing from members. But I can tell you one big push lately of the members has been that the request has, you guys really are only being asked for 4,000 at this point. I can tell you I'm a lot more comfortable with something under 5. I've been very open on my show and on Facebook for the same reasons that I have issues with the candidate support ones. I can tell you I'm a lot more comfortable with a figure under 5. Because I do want to see a financial commitment from the state. But however, a caucus stepping up and saying, we're giving this to the state, to me is a financial commitment from the state. So I can tell you that the fact that the Mises Caucus, and I would be mentioning by name any caucus that did this isn't playing favorites. The fact that they stepped up has made me now inclined to support this, but minus the support they kicked in, because I do need to see some skin in the game, either from the state party or on behalf of the state party, which the Mises Caucus has stepped up to do. So I can tell you that their donation has influenced me greatly because I view it as them stepping in for proxy to help you guys. It can't just be LNC funds in my view. So I'm now much more inclined, but I'm much more inclined at a figure under 5. Okay. I'm just letting you know where I'm at.
If I can just add to that for just one moment.
Yes.
Dr. Jimmy Blake, our candidate for governor, who is a member of the Mises Caucus and a longtime member of the Mises Institute as well, and personal friends with Jeff Deist, has donated $15,000 of his own money to his own campaign. So I would say that Alabama is working from within the state to raise as much money as possible. We're just getting to the ends of what we've been able to do with the fundraising infrastructure that we already had in place. But we have been working diligently to put together more fundraising infrastructure, including a dial pad phone banking team, and then connections through the LNC and other organizations to be able to have those numbers.
Any other questions, Ms. Harlows?
Yeah, I was messing around with the thing here. I want to just encourage the members that wrote, like, I cannot tell you how grateful I am that a group stepped up. And again, I wouldn't care what caucus it was. This is really what we need to see. And I would encourage those members that wrote to now not just write, either donate directly to the Libertarian Party of Alabama or to the National Party so that we can do more things like this somewhere, because fortunately, I mean, we're capitalists. I don't want to say unfortunately money, but the reality is politics takes money. So I'm really enthused that a group stepped up to put up money, because the letters are great. Money is what makes it go.
So to clarify, you guys have received a $2,000. You have received that, and you should be receiving in the future $2,500.
2,500 has been pledged by the
Right, it's been
members of the
pledged.
Alabama Music Caucus. Yes.
Okay, so we're hoping that comes in. Okay, let's go to Mr. Hagopian and then Mr. Nikela.
I just wanted to read the comment I put in chat just so it's on the record. I believe, based on what I'm hearing now, is that I would probably not vote for funding the poll. However, I do believe that a request for ballot access funding for your best candidate or candidates that have the highest likelihood of getting the 20% would be in order. I don't think giving money to the gubernatorial candidate who is not going to get 20% makes sense. I think that a $10,000, I think you said there was no limit. You know what I mean? If you wanted to make a request like that, that could save us 6 figures in ballot access in 2024. That would be something that I could get behind. I just want to throw that out there. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Nikela.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gavin, or whoever can answer this, is the candidate who's supposed to be the front runner in this run that's supposed to get us this ballot access? Is he on the call?
The lieutenant governor candidate?
It's the gubernatorial candidate, Jimmy Blake, who is running in a 3-way race, who we've been putting the money through just because his apparatus is set up, as well as his relationship with the polling company. If the party were to send the money to one of the other statewide candidates, it would be I think we can transfer from candidate to candidate. I'm not sure. I imagine that the polling company doesn't care where the money comes from. But he is available. I can text him. He was at an event this evening, but he said he would be available if we needed to have him on.
And go ahead. Just so I'm not confused, this lieutenant governor candidate, is he the one that's supposed to get you that ballot access? Is he the one who you think, or
I'm sorry,
I'm a little confused.
If I can I share my screen? Is that possible?
Ms. Harlows?
Let me give you permissions.
Okay.
Actually, what I'm going to do, because if I give multiple participants, you know what happens. Someone's going to put up a screen and start scrolling.
I know.
Fun things. I'm going to make you a co-host.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that will allow you. Let me know if that gives you the permissions.
Can you see this?
I see you started screen sharing it. Yep.
Great. If you look here past our federal candidates, you can kind of see the lay of the land with what we have. So what I'm referring to is the lieutenant governor race here, Ruth Page Nelson. She is running an active campaign against Will Ainsworth. And this is the two-way race that we expect is the highest likelihood to get the 20%. What is interesting about the governor race, Dr. Jimmy Blake, is two things. And this is the data that we've been able to acquire lately. And I'll share this with you right now. Number one is that the incumbent governor, Kay Ivey, has received $134,000 in donations this year. And Yolanda Flowers, the gubernatorial candidate for the Democratic Party, has only received $5,000. Right now, we are, and this independent candidate has actually dropped out. So it's a three-way race, but there's also, if no one has been following the news in Alabama, a lot of evidence right now that the current governor, her stage 4 cancer has returned. She disappeared for several weeks. She's still expected to win, even if she were to come out. But we are kind of working those angles as well. So any support to the Jimmy Blake campaign supports all down ballot support. We are running in pods of teams, but the statewide team is traveling across the state to events to support all down ballot. So the funding and the expenses are shared. If that kind of clears up.
Yeah, I think that's sort of just a procedural issue at this point.
Right.
Okay, so I feel like that really kind of gives us all the information we need to get an email motion noticed if someone wanted to make some sort of motion for funding.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Madam Secretary.
I would make a motion that we allocate $4,000, which is the 6,000 minus the 2,000 that the National Mises Caucus has put in. I'm not counting the 2,500 as money in the bank because it's not. It's pledges. Right. I would encourage those to make good on those pledges, and I'm sure the Alabama Party will use that wisely. But I'd like to move that for an executive committee email ballot, 4,000.
Okay.
I would just like to make sure that nothing regarding the Mises Caucus is written down anywhere in there. That wasn't a coordination. That just.
No, the motion is just to allocate 4,000.
Yeah, it was just part of the justification.
Yes. I was just explaining where I got the 4,000 from and why I didn't reduce it by the 2,500.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Okay, so that motion has been noticed procedurally. Okay, and it's been seconded. So we'll do that on an email ballot. And Madam Secretary,
may I make I don't know if it'd be a competing motion or a second motion.
You certainly can.
All right.
I mean, it'll have to go to an email ballot, but you can make it.
Yeah. Okay. I will be planning on making an email ballot motion to give $5,000 directly to the lieutenant governor candidate, Alabama.
Okay.
Out of the ballot access fund.
Todd, I have a question,
Yes,
and this is how I suggest handling it. This is the way Alicia handled things like this in the past. Is your intention for the $5,000 contingent upon us not giving 4,000? In other words, do you want to risk both of them passing? Or the way to normally handle this would be for me, if yours is contingent, would be for me to start the 4,000 one today, so that its natural time period will expire before yours. And it kind of almost makes it run for the 7 days unless everyone votes. I know I'm not being exactly clear here because executive committee.
And I can answer you. It is not contingent.
Okay.
I believe that I would almost like this written in a way that this 5,000 that I'm talking about cannot go towards the poll. If that's possible. because I'm trying to do is avoid ballot. I think that this 5,000 is a better spend to avoid the ballot access issue that we're going to run it.
So can you please reword it then? So I have my motions to allocate $4,000 towards polling in Alabama. Your motion is to give $5,000 directly to
The lieutenant governor candidate in Alabama with funds not to be allocated towards the poll.
okay.
Can I ask what budget line?
Yeah,
That would be ballot access.
Okay.
and mine would be as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Okay, I'll start them. I'll second yours on Mr. Hagopian so that we have it kosher to start.
Thank you both. Okay, so we've got that. I believe that is all of our discussion items. Did I miss any discussion items? I think I got it all. Okay, we're gonna see if anybody wants to do 1 minute public comment before someone makes that motion. So if you want to do 1 minute, you got to time yourself, use your cell phone. 1 minute for public comment at the end. Raise your hands right now. Go down there to the bottom of your screen to the reactions. We have Mr. Michael Crump. We have TJ Kosen. Okay, so let's start doing public comment. Mr. Michael Crump, please go right ahead.
Yes, I am a candidate running for District 5 paper candidate. And I do remember a time where I wanted to vote for Libertarian, but I had to write one in or do sort of a independent candidacy. And currently, Alabama's Secretary of State ruling is that independent candidates and writing candidates are counted as a writing candidate or an independent candidate. You have to run as a Libertarian in the procedural process, but you'll be counted as just one person all along with the other independent or writing candidates. So it's very needed, this polling, because I remember running and voting that my vote won't count or my candidacy would not count. So I would have to be running as a Libertarian, and this polling funding would be very effective for that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we'll go to Mr. TJ Kosen.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to give the board an update on Brittany Kosen's appeal. So we submitted the brief to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. It was accepted. And then they have now submitted their oppositional brief. We should have that by tomorrow. And then the PA Supreme Court has 7 days to decide whether they're going to hear arguments in person or if they're just going to go off the written arguments. I can, if anyone wants it, I think Angela has the briefing. I emailed it to her.
Yep.
And we are looking to, he's attacking it from multiple angles like we thought he would, but ultimately it boils down to the 15 days that she withdrew within 15 days as a Republican. Therefore, she's entitled to run as a Libertarian, and that should help us win. And then that's basically all I got for you guys.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to thank you again.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you. Let's go next to Mr. Gavin Goodman.
I just want to thank the EC for their consideration. This is very generous, and I appreciate both motions. And I would ask that both you consider voting yes for. The money will be put to good use, and Alabama will not let you down.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Mr. Pat Ford.
Hi, folks. Yes, here at the beginning of the meeting, I want to congratulate the Libertarian Party of New York for a very successful convention that included Ms. McArdle remotely. Thank you for your comments on that. They were well taken, and as a form of encouragement, it was very, very well received for the ongoing battle in New York. I'd like to mention to folks that there's an existential battle going on in New York against the state. So if you could donate to the Libertarian Party of New York for continued access. I'd also like to mention that there is a candidate in Rhode Island for governor, Elijah Gizzarelli, who is the type of person that's probably helped out just about everybody in this room. LPRI.us. I'm proud to say that both ballot access and the candidacy have taken no money from national. So how about everybody kind of going to LPRI.us and donating 10 or 20 bucks to the party. The party is effectively funding if you will, a lot of the initial efforts in the gubernatorial race. It is a ballot access race. For the first time in a generation, we've got a shot at ballot access. Elijah gets 5% of the vote in a very crowded, confused field where no one likes the Democrat or the Republican candidate. We get ballot access, and that will save the party. And I'm teasing when I say this, no money, because we don't do it on our own. So God bless everyone for a great night. Again, give Elijah a shout, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Okay, there's just one thing left to happen tonight. Anybody want to make that motion?
I would move to adjourn, Madam Chair.
There we go.
Second.
And it's been seconded. Any objections to adjournment? Going once, going twice. We are adjourned at 9:08 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, everyone, for coming, for giving public comment, for supporting candidates. Thank you, everyone, for keeping this meeting so short. Very impressed that we got so much done in such a short amount of time. Our lovely secretary is going to notice some email ballots for the executive committee only, and we will get voting on those, and we'll try to wrap it up quickly. Have a great night, everyone.
Right, I'll be starting the ballots immediately